I'm Pops, and I'm going to talk about the Justice League Flashpoint Paradox. By the way, I have no idea why we changed the name. So here's the thing. I wanted to understand where I think the WBD is going in the grand scheme of driving their comic books and their movie franchises, and they're pulling a lot out of like New 52. They've also got a new storyline called The Flashpoint Beyond, also written by Jeff Johns. So I wanted to go back to the beginning and reread this story. And I read those comic books. And so I said, well, since I read the comic books, let me watch the animated adaptation. This is my thoughts on that. And by the way, I don't think it was necessary to call it Justice League, The Flashpoint. I didn't need the word paradox in there just because at one point Zoom says, I'm a paradox. It could have just been called Flashpoint. Like, I don't understand why the branding has gone so far off the rails. If you haven't been watching it, I do Saturday morning cartoons with Pops where I've been doing a rewatch, a Batman animated series, an X-Men animated series. You're seeing two completely different approaches to successful ways to expand your brand, right? So X-Men is almost making like literal points of, sure, they make changes, right? So Days of Future Past had Bishop and things like that, but it points all directly back to certain comic book storylines. Batman's taking a villain that may be kind of lower tier, like Mr. Freeze, does this incredible episode and elevates the character to a new level. Flashpoint is this story. It reshapes your entire universe. And when you adapt it for the animated series, you add all these other words and create confusion. And then on top of that, you make changes to the story that don't need to be made, right? So the premise of the story is this. Barry just wakes up one day and the whole world is completely different, right? He doesn't have powers. His mom is alive. There's no Superman. They make a comment about Batman, so he goes to see Batman because he knows Bruce is like one of, if not his closest friend. Of course, it's not the Batman Bruce Wayne he knows. It turns out that it's Thomas Wayne. It's the dad. And for some way, somehow, at the death in Crime Alley, Bruce is the one that got shot and killed. And Thomas is now this version of Batman in a world where Wayne Enterprises is more like Wayne Casinos and all this crazy glitz and glamour Vegas style approach to Gotham and the Wayne legacy. You also have kind of rushed backstories that are put into the animated show from the comic books. They didn't want to spend the time they needed with some of the things that were happening. I do understand that a little bit, but if the show was going to be so much about only Flash, then just call it Flashpoint. If it's going to be about the Justice League, then we probably should have had more about the Justice League, because the Aquaman Wonder Woman story in this universe was that when she left Paradise Island, Themyscira, she was attacked by a kraken, and Wonder Woman is saved by Aquaman, and they kind of have this sort of like, our cultures are very similar. We should come out to the world together. They decide to get married. As they start to get married, there's an assassination attempt. It ends up this back and forth, and it ends up with basically like a world war between Atlantis and the Amazons, and it's all sorts of chaos. Obviously, their homeland is destroyed. The Amazons end up taking parts of Europe, which are flooded by the Atlanteans, and they end up on basically the UK, the island there. And Green Lantern, when they come to Earth, Hal doesn't get the ring. Hal just saves him, right? So the alien is not passing off the ring to Hal Jordan, right? Cyborg is this incredible superhero like Superman, works for the government. And that's that, because Superman didn't land in Kansas in this universe. It landed in Metropolis. The government got their hands on Superman. They've kept him in a lab, so he's not really been exposed to sun. So he's super powerful, but he doesn't have like the level up. He looks like he weighs like 100 pounds and looks like a child with like a giant head. It's very strange. In the comic books, there's tons of lore. There's a whole series that explains these different things. The Aquaman story, the Wonder Woman story, a lot of depth, a lot of great read and stuff like that. And they just rushed right through it to just stick to this Flash part of the storyline, which is not horrible, right? Because something has caused all of this. And the lead up is we don't know what really has happened. Now, what they really skip over, because when you first meet the Batman, he's going to kill a character named Yo-Yo, which is basically this universe's Harley Quinn. Where's the Joker? And he just throws Yo-Yo off a building, which Cyborg rescues, right? Now, in the comic book, what you find is, and major spoiler alerts, by the way, major spoiler alerts, okay? In the comic book, the Batman miniseries, the Flashpoint miniseries of this Batman, involves the death of Bruce, and Martha she has blood on her. She basically becomes the Joker. And so Tom becomes Batman, Martha becomes the Joker, because remember, again, there's no Bruce to become Batman, so therefore there's no one to drop or make into the Joker. This is how the Joker exists. And in there, Batman can't bring him, and it is dark. There's a comment about Judge Dent, Harvey Dent, never becomes Two-Face. He becomes a judge. He's been kidnapped. Well, in the comic book, it's Dent's kids, their twin kids. The Joker, Martha, has rigged up this horrible murder-looking scene where one twin is bound and they have extensions on the hands with guns. The other twin is on the floor, and you think that you think it's the Joker that's going to kill the twin, but it's the other twin. When Gordon bursts in, he kills one of the kids. Like it is so, oh man, it is so edgy. It's so good. This is why fans love the Flashpoint Batman, because of these comic books and this dark, violent Punisher version of Batman, not one that is interested in letting anybody live. Like he's just, no, we're not doing that. And it really is interesting because it really shows that Flash represents a lot of hope in this universe, because Flash dates back to the original Justice Society and formation of the League and them coming together and all of that, which I think is very, very good. But it also shows that they were kind of cowardice in making the show, because they steered away from even the Dent's twins and went to this, because they would have to show the Joker scene or something like that, which they didn't want to do. Right. There are other scenes like well, let me do this, because this is my biggest problem with the show. I think overall I had a good time watching it. My biggest problem with the show, let's go to this. So this is in our world where Zoom is there with his scheme, and this is the group that shows up. Look at the animation on like Aquaman and Captain Atom. Everyone looks on steroids. Like actually Aquaman and Captain Atom look bigger than Superman. And Aquaman looks bigger than Superman, like significantly bigger than Superman. Like I could not stand the animation. And I really have to admit, I hate sort of like this anime look to Wonder Woman, where they kind of elongate her face into a point and they change her hair and features a little bit too much. I really, really did not like some of the animation in this element. And then later on, this is the Batman. This is Thomas Wayne. And I hate this little gray unshavenness that they have, because they also allow for this white to show beneath the cowl. He has red eyes and a red bat and all that. It's kind of like these cool. So there are design elements that are cool, but I hated this sort of like, 5 o'clock shadow kind of nonsense. I really, really didn't like that. So, anyway, so the story is really, really good. It stays pretty well true to the comic book for the most part, as far as how the battles play out, some of the deaths, things like that. You do get a lot of they included a lot of the esoteric characters from the comics, which is pretty cool, right? You said DC Grifter, who was a holdover from Jim Lee's work over at Wildstorm/Image. You get the Cricket, you get Zenton, you get all sorts of cool stuff that's in there. In this basically this world war between Aquaman and Wonder Woman are going to destroy the planet. Like Cyborg's trying to put together a team. He has to figure out how to get Batman involved. Well, when Flash visits Batman, he basically ultimately tries to explain and prove it. He convinces Batman to help him rig up the experiment to become the Flash and get struck by lightning. It doesn't even work the first time. He has to do it twice. Very much in line with the comic books and very, very well executed. I really loved it. I loved how Barry is handled here. He's really a beacon of hope, which I think is a cool way for Flash and Superman to be represented. Superman, of course, doesn't matter in this. They go to find Superman, basically the kid in the lab, and all that was fine. I liked all that. I like when he shows up at the final battle, and it is graphic, man. They that's why I said the Dent twins thing bothers me, because at the end there's like, a bullet when Batman shoots someone, it's like a bullet to the face. There's tons of stuff that pushes the edge where they shied away from other elements that would have been actually the interesting and more true to form from the comic book adaptation. So that's my take on the show. I have kind of like a midland perspective. I think if I don't know anything about the comic books and things like that, I would have enjoyed it more. Other than the animation, I really hated the design element, and they did so much great work in like set design and background creation. Like there's so much intricacies that are put into this world where these battles are taking place and massive structures are being destroyed and water and floods and death and dismay. Tons of character designs that are great, like Demon. I loved it all. But at the same time, Aquaman looks like he's been on roids and he's bigger than Superman and things like that. It's just, I didn't care for that. So, and the way that Zoom is handled, and when the truth is revealed that really Zoom didn't do it, Flash did it. Flash saved the mom, and that's what basically creates everything as a problem, because if Flash saves mom, he's not obsessed with trying to solve the crime or try to figure it out, so therefore he wouldn't have been there to get struck by lightning. And if Flash doesn't exist and create Speed Force, therefore Zoom doesn't exist. It sounds way more complicated than it is. It's really not that complicated, and it is really a cool concept of how things get handled. And this is another reason why I believe the Flashpoint movie looks like absolute garbage, because nothing we have seen in any of the promotional material, nothing we have seen with Ezra Miller, the whatever that Supergirl thing is, the concept of Keaton doesn't make any sense either. I mean, I'd love to see Keaton as well, but just Flashpoint is not Spider-Man No Way Home, where you just have portals open up and you're just sucking in other characters from other universes and Christopher Reeve and Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck. That's not what Flashpoint is. So I don't know what they're trying to do, and I think it was interesting to go back and reread and revisit the show and things like that. So you guys tell me. This thing has been around for years. I don't have the date on this pulled up. You guys tell me what you think. This has been around 2013, so like it's new, so you guys have seen it. You guys let me know what you think. Give me your thoughts. What do you think of the comic books, character designs? And then I'll move on to Flashpoint Beyond now, because I wanted to revisit that. I wanted to revisit this before I moved on and reread. I wanted to reread Flashpoint before I moved on and read the new Beyond series. So that's a lot of words. Pops has got problems this morning, guys. Sorry about that. Anyway, thanks, guys. Thanks.